first off, how do you say the title of this show? Is it 8686 or is it just 86? Because like written out, the title is the number 86 and then the word 86, which would lead you to then think that you're supposed to say 8686. But that doesn't feel right. And so I'm just going to call it 86 for the sake of this video and every video going forward. If I decide to cover the show in its entirety, I'm just going to call it 86. But yeah, after the first episode of 86, this show is not off to a great start. What is up, y'all? It's your man, That Dude, bringing you guys another video. I'm giving out subscriptions down below. You don't want to miss anything, so go hit that button. Also, feel free to follow and hit me up on Twitter at DadDudeAnime. I don't want to go too hard on the first episode of 86 because it wasn't horrible, right? It wasn't like the worst first episode I've ever seen, but it wasn't good, not at all. This first episode did nothing to get me interested in the show. Luckily, when I read the synopsis for it on Anichart, the synopsis piqued my interest, and that is why I watched it, and that is why I'll watch at least to episode 3 or 4. But if I were just someone who just decided to pick up a show and watch it and see if it captured me, this first episode wouldn't do it because this episode really does nothing that would pique your interest. It doesn't give you any really good battle scenes or action. And then from there, it doesn't really give you a character that you can latch onto, or it doesn't at least put any of the characters in a situation that might bring forth something to make you care about them. It doesn't do any of the things that is required to get someone interested in the show if they were just going to watch one episode. It doesn't do that, which typically you want to put something in the first episode of a show that's going to bring in an audience, that's going to capture someone who maybe is just checking out a random anime. Maybe they're bored one night and they see the picture for this show, so they watch it, and I'll see where it goes. If that is you, you're probably not going to stick around for the show because there's just nothing in this first episode to really pique your interest or capture you or make you want to sit down and watch more. You have to, if you're a fan of the manga, if this show is based off of manga, which I'm assuming it is, if you are a fan of the manga, maybe you'll keep watching, or if you're like me, you read the synopsis and you think the story has potential, you'll keep watching. But if you're just someone who just came across this show, it doesn't do anything special in the first episode. Usually the first episode of a show has to give you at least a really good action scene, or give you a few scenes with a character where that character really gets to shine, and maybe you latch on to a character that way. The first episode of 86 doesn't do either of those things, and it's really to this episode's detriment because I do think the story has potential. I like the whole aspect of you have these I was about to say unmanned drones, but they're not unmanned drones. The public thinks they're unmanned drones, but they're actually being piloted by real people, and these people die in battle. So there are consequences to these battles that the public does not know about. The public thinking is there are no casualties. We're fighting this really progressive war where no one dies, and that's just not the case. I like that premise. I also like that in the episode we see that when you have all these drones that fight the wars for the soldiers, what do you then do with your military? We saw that they're just around drinking at early in the morning, just partying, doing nothing with their lives because they're soldiers. And now you have these unmanned drones to fight their battles for them. So what are they going to do? And you also have the added layer of, well, if the war is going to end in 2 years, like they say in the show, what are these soldiers going to do for jobs? That is actually something brought up where I can't think of the blonde or the gray-haired chick's friend, but she says you need to do something to put on your resume because in a few years, putting army officer on your resume, that's not going to mean anything because you have these unmanned drones who have taken over all the combat positions in the military. I like that aspect of the show. There are things there that are interesting, but the framing of it could have been done so much better. You have to give me something that can be ooh, cool, or something oh wow, that was really great to watch. We didn't get any of that. The action scenes are brief and not very well choreographed, and we don't get to see enough of it. And the characters just don't really shine through in the writing in this first episode. We get that the lieutenant lady, or I should look up her name. I did look up her name, but I forgot. But the character who seems to be our main character, the silver hair chick, we get that she is compassionate about these, whatever the people who pilot the drones, or I don't know if they're clones or something, or they're artificial humans in some way, because they're treated like they're subhuman. They're treated like they're worthless. So there has to be something about the origin as to why they're treated that way. But she is very passionate towards them. She cares about them to an extent, and she tries to empathize with them and connect with them. So we know that she is at least a kind person. But outside of that, there was really nothing about her character in this first episode that is even remotely interesting. And then the 86s themselves, I think they're called the 86s, we haven't learned anything about them. We don't know what the origin is or why they're treated this way. We don't know, like, are they clones? Are they, people who are just like from the lowest rungs of society, and so nobody cares about them? We don't know anything about that. We could have gotten some kind of hint as to what the origin is and why they're treated that way, to then maybe build some interest from there. But we're not really given anything that we can latch on to and like pique our interest in this first episode. So all around, I think it was, I don't want to say a failure of the first episode, because there were a few things that I liked, but those things alone weren't enough to make this a good episode, because it just wasn't that. It wasn't horrible, but it was on the spectrum of like bad to good. This first you can't see my hands out here. So on a spectrum from bad to good, this episode was closer to bad than it was good. That's all I have for you on this one, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go hit that thumbs up. And if you are so inclined, subscribe and share. It would help me out a lot. If you didn't like the video, or if you disagree with anything I said, maybe you love this first episode and you plan to keep watching just off the basis of this first episode because you thought it was super interesting, let me know in the comments. We can talk about it. I respond to almost anything, and I'll see you guys in the next one.